Kevin received a text from Jade, and put his coffee down on his kitchen table to read it. Jade was updating him on what happened at the university. She was upset, so he called her.
Don't worry about it. You got the name of the security guard, right?
Yeah.
We know she's an accomplice, so this is the best clue we have.
Kevin's suggestion hung in the silence until Jade disconnected. He let out a sigh and reached for his tepid coffee. Whoop! Whoop! His one sounded, then a voice.
Drone for lightning delivery. Please proceed to the rendezvous point.
He stepped out in front of his apartment building, and a courier drone was hovering over the entrance. It hovered away from the trees and Kevin looked up at it. He could feel the wind from its 4 fan rotors and he squinted against the flying pine needles. It recognized his face and lowered a box down on a long thin cable until it rested on the ground. The drone detached the cable from the package and reeled it back up, before flying away. Kevin. This is the account used by Alan to back up his one. His password was for Chalketta? I have included a blank one if you would like to restore it. Francis. I wonder how Francis knew Alan's password? Kevin backed up the one and found it had been set to track Alan's location. He traced Alan to the point of the kidnapping, and then the tracking went dead. The kidnappers must have disabled it. He set up a search focused on the area of the kidnapping and ordered information from IntelliMart. Only companies who need access to the information for marketing may purchase it, so he set up an account using one of his fake IDs and logged on. Ostensibly, Kevin represented a business which was marketing to people in the university area and wanted to know who frequented the business building and hub mall. He spoke the command into his monitor.
Filter November 20th to 27.
2,000 hits. Who was there when the kidnapping happened? He wondered. Time equals 2:45 to 3 o'clock. Filter. 600 hits. Let's see who had their contacts on. Occupation equals student. Income equals less than 20,000 loonies per year. Filter. 300 hits. Kevin transferred 200 loonies and downloaded the sanitized top-level data on the 300 people. Low to middle income people who like technology were the most likely to have their lenses in free mode where they uploaded everything they saw or heard. Kevin flipped through the metadata. It was the best money could buy, but not good enough. This was the tedious part. He had to go through each of the 300 people to see if they were close enough to witness the kidnapping.
Number 1.
He sighed, rubbed his eyes, and started looking. He paid an extra 50 loonies for detailed data and received a profile of the person, including purchasing habits. Judging by the amount of data, she must use free mode. He assembled his homemade 3-foot wire basket antennae and aimed it roughly toward the northwest, while monitoring the strength of the wireless signal as he tweaked it. Then he opened a connection to the Deadhead's wireless network using a hacked password to make his internet untraceable. He ran his C20 script to hack into the raw, unsanitized data on the server using an arcane vulnerability he had discovered and, in a flash, a list of video files appeared, sorted by the time they were captured. This information was not supposed to be available to anyone. Artificial intelligence programs analyze the data with no human ever seeing it. He purchased detailed data on 100, then went through the list, starting at the time of the kidnapping to see what each subject was looking at. It was now 1 a.m. and the caffeine was not enough to keep him alert, and he took a gray market modafinil. At number 107, he found a subject who was in the correct area at the right time. The video began in what appeared to be a business course. Judging by the projection on the classroom screen, it was a finance class, and the professor wrapped up his lecture, but the subject was looking around the room and at her one. When the class was over, she picked up her tablet and left the lecture hall with a female friend. Her eyes alternated between her friend's eyes and looking ahead to where she was walking. She turned the corner toward the exit and Kevin recognized Alan walking with a group of students leaving the business building. The subject's eyes alternated from her friend to the shoes of the women who were walking in front and then briefly glancing at men's bottoms. The subject walked 10 meters behind Alan as they headed to the hub mall. He was with an entourage of 5 other well-dressed students, including 3 women and 2 other men. Since the contacts were linked to the subject's one, audio was available, but it was too far to hear what they were saying. Alan appeared to be telling an amusing story. His friends turned to listen, flashing their perfect smiles. A dark woman of Indian descent toyed with a lock of her hair in a coquettish way. She turned, and the subject got a quick glimpse of the tip of her raven hair caressing her very expensive cleavage. Just then, a man shouted, and the subject's eyes darted towards him. 3 men in the distance with wraparound mirrored glasses, balaclavas, and guns grabbed Alan. One punched him in the stomach and cracked the butt of his pistol against head. The girl shrieked and bolted, and her heart rate shot up to 120 beats a minute. The subject looked over her shoulder, then stopped, and 2 of the goons grabbed each of Alan's arms and jabbed their guns in his ribs. The subject gasped and stopped blinking. Blood streamed down Alan's bowed face. The third man stood with legs wide and both hands on his silenced 9mm machine pistol. Bouncing on the balls of his feet like a prizefighter, darting back and forth, yelling, "Nobody fucking move." He fired off a warning burst with a muffled rattle and buzz like a steam-powered sewing machine. The subject froze in fear. Kevin read her vital signs in a bar to the left of the video. The lenses detected her pupils were dilated and heart rate, blood pressure and adrenaline spiking. The kidnappers rushed Alan toward the parking lot, with the third man following, glancing behind, to make sure no one was following. Just then, a man shouted, and the subject's eyes darted towards him. 3 men in the distance with wraparound mirrored glasses, balaclavas, and guns grabbed Alan. One punched him in the stomach and cracked the butt of his pistol against head. The girl shrieked and bolted, and her heart rate shot up to 120 beats a minute. The subject looked over her shoulder, then stopped, and 2 of the goons grabbed each of Alan's arms and jabbed their guns in his ribs. The subject gasped and stopped blinking. Blood streamed down Alan's bowed face. The third man stood with legs wide and both hands on his silenced 9mm machine pistol. Bouncing on the balls of his feet like a prizefighter, darting back and forth, yelling, "Nobody fucking move." He fired off a warning burst with a muffled rattle and buzz like a steam-powered sewing machine. The subject froze in fear. Kevin read her vital signs in a bar to the left of the video. The lenses detected her pupils were dilated and heart rate, blood pressure and adrenaline spiking. The kidnappers rushed Alan toward the parking lot, with the third man following, glancing behind, to make sure no one was following.
These guys know their shit. Probably ex-military.
He recognized they were unnaturally buff and had gaps between their teeth. Juice monkeys. He suspected they might be mercenaries, with no lasting ties to whoever ordered the kidnapping. Okay, now I need to find who saw the getaway car. Kevin was encouraged by his results so far. He checked each of the other subjects and 30 saw the car from the rear, but none of them close enough or at the right angle to see the license plate number, but he still took captures of all of them. You never knew, in his line of work, what minor detail might crack it. The modafinil kicked in and he was in his groove and worked with no concept of time. He loaded the interface to his wall screen and scrubbed through the video. The best part looked like the subject was 100 meters directly behind the car. Zooming into where the license plate should be, he found nothing but a constellation of pixels. He tossed more frames, one by one into the intrapolator. His arms waved and his voice commanded like a conductor, selecting, copying and pasting frames around the license plate with pinches of his fingers and a twist of his wrist, then dropping them into the app while his aging computer chugged away at the computations. At the 10th iteration, the original image became less nebulous, and he could make out fuzzy shapes of numbers and letters. Statistical analysis determined the probability of a pixel being a certain shade or color at a certain location. The fuzz began to congeal. 25th iteration. Is that an F or an E? 29th iteration. LWE 746, got it. He said, collapsing back in his chair with a victory groan. It was 5:30 a.m. and the fatigue hit him like a Mickey Finn. He remembered when he was high, he could go all night, but he also remembered how he felt afterwards. Come down's a bitch. He needed to keep reminding himself of the bad things that come with drugs to avoid falling back into them. There was one ultimate step to trace the license plate and find out who they were. The portal to the credit checking service asked him for his credentials and he entered the name of his fake car dealership. License equals LWE 746. Result. Name equals Alexander Livingstone. Make equals Xiaomai. Model equals Pesca. Color equals gray. His jaw dropped slightly. The kidnapper's car was a brown Toyota, the license plate was stolen. He hit a dead end. Resignation set in. He needed to piss like a racehorse and probably had for a long time. When he finished, he shuffled to his bed with his pants still open and let them fall to the floor. A gap in the curtain projected thin gray light against the wall. Shadows of dark pines filtered the streetlight and splintered and cindered it into amorphous, quivering globes against the wall, alone against the darkness in his room. He slumped into his bed and minutes later, felt sleep approaching, then awoke with a sudden start.